Alright, got my coffee, got my Leatherface. Let's rank the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise.
You can support me on Patreon for just $1 a month.
What's going on, ladies and gentlemen? Christian Hannahar here. We are about to rank probably the hardest franchise as I've ever done. This one was not easy to rank, but I gave it my best. And today we're going to be ranking the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise. And I want to start this video off by saying this is just my opinion. This is not set in stone. This doesn't mean that I think any of these movies are particularly bad. It's just my ranking. So, let's get started. Coming in at dead last at number 8 is going to be the newest one, Leatherface. You know, the problem with Leatherface for me wasn't that it was a bad made movie. It just kind of felt like there was a lot of misdirection. It kind of felt like the casting was not right. And I tell you, to be honest with you, this is the only film in the entire franchise to me that did not feel like a Texas Chainsaw Massacre film at all. And that's really the biggest issue with it for me. It doesn't feel like a Texas Chainsaw film in the slightest. The gore was pretty gory, but it didn't really have any substance to it. So my biggest complaint with Leatherface was just not inspired. Coming in next at number 7 is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Yes, the Texas Chainsaw film with Matthew McConaughey in it. Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation, I can enjoy the film. It is what it is. It's the 4th entry in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, where pretty much every film is a part 2 to the original. The biggest issue I have with the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation is, number 1, bad cinematography. The film looks grainy. The film doesn't look that great. Number 2, no memorable characters. Number 3, just cheaply made. And I think there's a difference in cheaply made from the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre, where it actually benefited from the film, which you'll see that movie in this list obviously later on. But with Texas Chainsaw Massacre: Next Generation, it doesn't come off as such. It just comes off as a bad movie to me. But that's not to say that I don't enjoy Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation. Coming in at number 6 is actually going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. Yes, the movie that was the prequel to the 2003 remake. And you know, I do like this movie. We are in the clear at this point. Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning has a pretty good first half of a movie. You know, it looks great. The film has a great soundtrack to it. Leatherface looks huge and menacing. And we've got great characters in the movie. I think there's not a bad actor in this film. The only problem I have with this movie is a lot of daylight. I want to see Texas Chainsaw Massacre at night. I want to see the horror. But that's really my only biggest complaint. Other than that, I actually really enjoy Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning. And if you guys haven't seen it in a while, highly suggest you go back and watch it. It's actually got some really brutal scenes in it. Coming in next at number 5 is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3, or other known as Leatherface. You know, this is another movie where it's a direct sequel to the original film. Coming out in 1990, Leatherface was actually a pretty good movie, but it didn't seem like it got much press, or it didn't seem like it got seen by a lot of people. New Line Cinema picked up the rights to the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise, and unfortunately Jeff Burr was basically had his movie hacked into pieces after it was done, and didn't really see a whole lot of light of day. You know, Leatherface is actually a pretty good movie. You've got great actors like Ken Faree in this movie, and the performances are pretty funny. You know, this is actually a goofy movie. Now, Leatherface isn't so much goofy, but his family is goofy, and it's all different people in the family. You've got now a mother, and you've got this daughter in the family. But you've got a funny element in this movie that, you know, I really appreciate. Does it compare to the original? Maybe not, but Leatherface is not a bad movie. Coming in next is going to be Texas Chainsaw 3D. You know, this is a movie I see a lot of people hate, and I don't really understand why. For me, Texas Chainsaw 3D was a really enjoyable movie. One, you had some beautiful women, there's no doubt about it. The actors were more contemporary, and I don't think they were too over the line of the way people acted back in the day. or back then, it was a few years ago, 2013, the look of Leatherface was absolutely phenomenal in this movie. And being inside of the Sawyer house was so great. You really get to settle in this house and enjoy it and not see so much brutality in it. Very well shot movie. The 3D isn't too ridiculous, and the kill scenes are pretty great. So with me, Texas Chainsaw 3D was a fun ride, and I did see it in a theater, so the experience for that was pretty awesome. Coming in next is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. That's right, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, the 1986 sequel to Tobe Hooper's original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. You know, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 was such a fun, goofy movie. There's really an element to this one that you don't see in any of them. And I gotta say that each Texas Chainsaw Massacre film really has its own style. You don't really feel a connection between one to the other, which is kind of bizarre when you think about it. You know, but they all still feel like Texas Chainsaw Massacre films, if that makes sense. But Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 is just the right blend of comedy and horror, and it was made at the right time, 1986. You got some great stuff with Grandpa winning the chili cook-off because he has human meat in it. You've got this great scene at the end with this giant lair where the family is living in this bunker. And it is creepy and it is funny, and Stretch is awesome in the movie. You really get behind her character, and it's just great. The Leatherface mask was done by Tom Savini. It looked fantastic. You've got great characters like Bill Moseley's Chop Top. Just memorable stuff. Absolutely love Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 from 1986. Coming up next is going to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. Yes, the one time a remake ranks extremely high on my list, and it's for one simple reason. The movie is just really cool to me. It's really good, and it's so enjoyable. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, I really don't have a complaint. We got the great Jessica Biel in it. It is a darker film. It is brutal. You've got the great characters like the real-life drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket. He is awesome in the movie. You've got such great kill scenes, and there's a lot of tension in the 2003 remake. The music was great. There's not a complaint I really have about the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, especially the mask. The mask looked great in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. You know, I read that one time Rob Zombie was asked to be involved in the movie, and I'm kind of glad he didn't, because that's not a movie that his style would benefit from. So coming in at number 2 is the surprising Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003. And the number 1 movie, obviously we know what it is because I've said every other movie but this one. You know, this is the one time too, I don't think I've ever done this where I put the original movie as number 1, but you know what? The original Texas Chainsaw Massacre. It has such a quality that no other film has. It is raw. It benefits from this grainy look. Gunnar Hansen just really sets the tone for Leatherface that nobody else really kind of got. This big monster who is really fighting for his safety, because Leatherface has always been a scared young character who has a lot of fear, and Gunnar just amplified that to the 10th degree. The end scene is one of the greatest scenes in horror movie history, where she's running out of the house, she gets in the truck, and she's driving away, and you see Leatherface just throwing that chainsaw in the air. One of the most iconic scenes in horror movie history. Tobe Hooper's 1974 Texas Chainsaw Massacre is one of the most timeless classics, came before Halloween, really doesn't get enough credit in my opinion. So while Texas Chainsaw Massacre may not be my favorite franchise, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, the 1974 original movie, is without a doubt one of the greatest horror movies, top 5 in my opinion, one of the greatest horror movies of all time. That was my list for the Texas Chainsaw Massacre franchise ranking. That was fun, and I gotta be honest, that was one of the toughest rankings I've ever done. Cannot wait to hear your guys' responses in the comment section. Once again, please be sure to hit that little bell to be notified when I upload, and be sure to subscribe to Christian Henna Horror. We do great videos like this all the time. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next time.